what keeps you up at night in regards, not personal life, where it's like my daughters, my wife, my family, my this, in regards to enemies America may have. What keeps you up at night?
Oh. Yeah, those aren't the kind of thoughts I have. You look around the world, there are always warring factions, but I try to put it on a scale. And on that scale, today there's conflict in the world, and sometimes if it's armed conflict, people die, this sort of thing, of course, in Ukraine and Russia and this sort of thing. When I look back to the Second World War, between 1939 and 1945, 1,000 people were killed per hour of every hour between 1939 and 1945. You want to talk about a time of violence. There is no comparison to that period. We look back on it, we won the war and we had the technology, and it's remembered differently from the carnage that caused. And so when I look around and I see carnage in the world and I index it to that, I say to myself, we're in a relatively safe world, which is hard. It's a hard sell if you're the country being invaded and bombed,
no question.
But so that's why it's a hard conversation to have. But I think it matters. People say we're in the most racist time ever. No, we're not. Objectively, I have stories from my parents. I have stories from my life. I have metrics for this. Yeah, there's still problems, but you know how to measure this? Here's how you do it. Let's say you're on the gender spectrum, or you're a person of color, or you're a woman, and you have a time machine. And someone says, and I talk about this in the book, I say, here's a time machine. You can have access to any time in the history of civilization. Where would you go? And choose a time where you'll be better off than you are today. There is no time.
You're going nowhere.
You're going nowhere. Send me to the future. Because the arc of progress, the arc of morality bends towards progress, and nowhere at all. If you're gay, you can say, well, let me go back. Clinton was a good oh, wait a minute. That was the don't ask, don't tell era.
That was AIDS pervasive killing everyone era.
Okay, right. Yeah. So our media has a tendency, news media has a tendency to focus on all that is bad and leave you with the impression that everything is bad without the metric of, well, some things are better. Most things are better. Why don't we focus on that and do more of that rather than become sad over the things that are bad? Did that sentence come out?
Such a powerful point right now.
Right.
Everything you're saying.
We are doing some things that are good. That's why there is progress.
What you're saying is we're living in the best time humanity has ever seen ever.
Ever.
That's such a necessary message.
Ever. Yes. And even with the violence.
Yes.
Especially in these days, the violence against trans people. Okay. All right. Yes. Go back in time. The existence of trans people was even denied. Okay. You have a mental condition. It was 1987 before the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality as a mental disorder from their catalog. 87, that's not, for old folks, that's not all that long ago. We remember those times. So, yeah, there's problems today. Yeah. I'm not going back to any time in the past.
There's a lot of like younger folks that don't remember that. I see a lot of these Gen Z types.
Right.
Young. What would your message be to young people? Even deeper?
Adam. Sorry. Let's stay on this topic, please.
That's what we're saying.
No. I'm staying on this topic here. I'm staying on the topic of what's keeping you up at night. We're not going to younger people.
We're
on the topic of what's keeping you up at night.
But
so stay on.
You want me to think about sort of the violence in the world, and when I reflect on the world, I think of how we are not killing 1,000 people per hour in warfare with the world at war. I think about that. I think about the fact that, yes, a taxi does pick me up today, even though I'm going north in Manhattan, where Harlem is. And whereas 15 years ago, they would not, or at least 2 and 4 would not. I can always wait for one to pick me up. I think about the occasions when I was coming up where I would just simply be ignored. This is something that women experience all the time with men.
Yeah.
It's something that the black community was experienced with white community. If you have expertise, you're just ignored. That has changed. Now you have black experts on television talking about things that have nothing to do with being black. We need an expert on this international relations.
How often do you talk about this? I know it's in your
Never.
book. No, how often do you talk?
Never. Hardly ever.
Why don't you, though?
Because then I become the person who talks about black things. And I don't want to be that person to you. I want to be the astrophysicist who tells you about the universe and the James Webb Space Telescope
but it shows,
and all the rest of this.
It shows sometimes I think, we have a life experience that we have been granted with to use as a way to give a different perspective to people at a time that's necessary to unify
there are plenty
a
of
nation.
other black people to give exactly that same
Yeah, but they don't have your voice, though. They don't have you. But by the way, what I want to say is I appreciate you saying that.
I got an example. I was in South Africa in 1992.
Yeah.
Okay. Barely the vote.
South Africa.
Yeah. And I'm walking the street. I'm not a small person. I'm walking, and there are a couple coming towards me. They're South Africa. They're white. They did not even look up. They're just looking down, talking to each other. It was fully expected that I would part around them for them to keep walking forward.
Yeah.
It wasn't even, let's just both take a slight half step to the side as you pass one another. No, that is not what happened. And at another time, I'm in a convenience store, and I put the money down, the Krugerrands and the gum or whatever I was buying. While I'm there in that little open section of the heavily overstuffed purchase area, someone comes up behind me, puts something down, fully expecting that they're going to be taken next when I am standing there. Like I said, I'm not a small person. This was South Africa. And I realized, okay, they still have a way to go because they haven't even graduated to the point of noticing me and then calling me names. They were still in a state where I did not exist and I was irrelevant. And then I look at those images from the 1950s of the police dogs and the people when the little school children are trying to go into the high school, and I say, wow, that's an advance over being completely ignored. All right, we look at the arc of what it takes for people to achieve equality and equity and all the things that that the promised land should give us all. I said to myself, okay, South Africa has a long way to go because they were not even calling me the N-word. And now I began to look at the N-word as, okay, you at least know I'm here.
That would have been progress, is what you're saying.
Progress. Progress.
You know what?
So to answer your question, I don't think about that.